What would you actually change about your day if your bank account doubled tomorrow? Most people answer fast. Nicer car, nicer meals, nicer everything. I thought the same way, right up until the money showed up and I realized the upgrades I was itching to make were the exact ones that would have quietly taken it all back. So I kept living a lot like I did when I had almost nothing. Not out of fear, out of plain math. These are the 15 frugal habits that stayed and why they still earn their place. Here is the part nobody tells you about building wealth. The habits that get you there and the habits that keep you there are almost the same habits. The day your income jumps is the most dangerous day for your money because that is the day the little luxuries start whispering that you have earned them. Some of these 15 are boring. A few of them earned me some funny looks. All of them are still working right now. And I will show you the real numbers behind each one so you can see exactly why I never let go. Number 1, I still cook most of my own meals. This is the habit people expect me to drop first, and I never did. Eating out is one of the biggest money leaks hiding in plain sight, and almost nobody treats it that seriously. The average sit-down meal now runs around $16 a plate, while cooking that same food at home lands closer to $4. That gap is about $12 every single time you sit down. Menu prices have climbed roughly 31% over the last 5 years, faster than groceries have, so the gap only keeps widening. A restaurant steak can cost you about 3 times what the raw ingredients would. A plate of lasagna eaten out can run almost 600% more than making it yourself. Over a full year. An American who eats out instead of cooking spends something like $13,000 more for the very same calories. Now take just the workday lunch. Swap 5 bought lunches a week for food from your own kitchen, and you keep around $3,100 a year. Put that into a simple, low-cost index fund, earning about 7%. Leave it completely alone for 30 years. And it grows to nearly $300,000. That is a single habit, and it is only lunch. This was never about having no choice for me. I stuck with cooking because I ran that math one time and could not unsee it. Number 2, I kept driving my paid-off car. When the money came in, the obvious move was a nicer vehicle, and I test drove exactly one before I did the arithmetic and walked out. The average new car payment in this country is now close to $750 a month. A friend of mine, I will call her Tessa, traded up the second her income rose. She felt fantastic for about a month. Then reality set in. That car lost a big chunk of its value the moment she drove it off the lot. And she was handing over roughly $9,000 a year just to sit in traffic in something shinier. I kept my old one. It is paid for, it runs, and it gets me to the exact same places hers does. Here is the quiet part. Take that $750 payment and invest it instead, month after month, at about 7%. And in 20 years, it becomes close to $400,000. A car loses value every single year you own it. Buying comfort on wheels felt good in the abstract, but every time I am tempted, I think about the version of me 20 years from now who would rather have the $400,000 than the leather seats. So I drive the old one, and I am completely at peace with it. Number 3, I never let my house grow to match my income. There is a trap that swallows high earners whole, and it has a name. Lifestyle creep. Your paycheck goes up, so your address goes up, your square footage goes up, your property taxes and your furniture and your heating bill all climb right along with it, and somehow you end up just as stretched as before, only now with a much bigger mortgage. I refuse to play that game, and I am in good company. Warren Buffett bought a 5-bedroom house in Omaha back in 1958 for $31,500. That is around $330,000 in today's money. The man is worth well over $100 billion, and he still lives in that same house to this day. He has said that owning 10 mansions would not make him any happier, that past a certain point your possessions start to own you instead. That idea stuck with me hard. A home should make your life better, and I simply stopped needing mine to impress anybody. I bought what I needed, I stayed put, and I let the money that would have gone into a status upgrade flow into investments instead. The house you can comfortably afford and the house you can technically qualify for are two very different numbers, and the space between them is where a lot of quiet wealth quietly gets built. Number 4, I keep my cash in a high-yield savings account, and I actually check the rate. This takes about 10 minutes, and most people never do it. Right now, the national average savings rate sits at about 1/3 of 1%, and the biggest traditional banks in the country are paying their most loyal customers as little as 1/100th of 1%. Read that again slowly. If you keep $25,000 in an emergency fund at one of those big banks, they hand you back around $2.50 a year for the privilege of holding your money. A good online high-yield account is paying close to 4% on that exact same federally insured deposit. On $25,000, 4% is $1,000 a year, earned while you sleep for zero extra risk. I moved my cash years ago and never once looked back. The banks are betting on your inertia. They know most folks will never move, so they pay almost nothing and pocket the difference. Do not be the person quietly funding that bet. Your emergency fund should be working every bit as hard as you are, and the switch costs you nothing but a slow afternoon. That is about the easiest $1,000 a year you will ever claim, and I claim it every year without lifting more than a finger. Number 5, I still reach for the store brand. Somewhere along the way, we all got convinced that the name on the label is worth paying extra for, and for the vast majority of everyday products, it simply is not. The generic pain reliever in the pharmacy aisle has the same active ingredient in the same dose as the one that costs 3 times more because the government requires it to. Store brand flour, sugar, canned beans, cleaning supplies, they roll off the same production lines as the premium versions far more often than the big companies would ever admit. I ran an experiment years ago where I switched a full grocery run over to store brands and tracked every item. I was cutting my grocery bill by roughly 1/4 without noticing a single difference on my plate. When money got easier, I could have switched back to the fancy labels to feel a little more successful. I did not, because the whole thing was always theater. Nobody is coming to inspect your pantry. The premium logo does not make the beans taste any better. That saved money, invested consistently, does far more for your future than a prettier box in the cupboard ever could. So, I still shop the generic aisle, and my portfolio quietly thanks me for it. Number 6, I pay myself first, and I automate it so I never even have to feel it. This is the single habit that quietly did the heaviest lifting for me, and it is the one I would tattoo on the back of every young person's hand if I could. The usual approach is to save whatever is left over at the end of the month, and by the end of the month there is never anything left, because spending expands to fill whatever sits in the account. So I flipped it. The day money comes in, a fixed amount moves automatically into investments before I can touch it or even think about it. What I do not see, I do not miss. Automate $500 a month into a retirement account earning around 7%, and in 30 years it becomes just over $600,000. Most of that being growth rather than your own deposits. The tax-sheltered accounts make it even sweeter. This year you are allowed to put up to $24,500 into a 401k, and every dollar of that can lower your tax bill today while it compounds for decades. When my income rose, I did not raise my spending. I raised the automatic transfer. That is the whole trick, and I still run it on autopilot right now. Number 7. I still wait a full 30 days before any big purchase. This one has saved me from myself more times than I can count. When I want something that costs real money, I do not buy it that day. I write it down, I put a date 30 days out, and I let the urge cool off. Something interesting happens over that month. Most of the time, the thing I was absolutely certain I needed quietly loses its grip on me, and I never buy it at all. The want was screaming loud in the moment and simply gone by the following week. Marketing is engineered to bypass your patience and go straight for the impulse. And the 30-day rule is a simple wall standing between that impulse and your wallet. Think about what those impulses add up to. If waiting cools off just $200 of impulse spending a month, and you invest that instead at about 7%, in 25 years, you are looking at more than $160,000. That is real money, built entirely out of purchases you were later glad you never made. The things I did still buy after 30 days, I actually used and valued because they had survived the wait. Getting comfortable did not make me start buying on a whim. If anything, the discipline got stronger because now I had more to protect. Number 8. I audit my subscriptions every few months and I cancel without a shred of guilt. Subscriptions are designed to be forgotten. That is the entire business model. A few dollars here, a few dollars there, all set to renew silently, all quietly betting that you will never notice or never bother to cancel. Streaming services you stopped watching, an app you opened exactly once, a gym membership tied to a version of yourself from 2 Januaries ago. A friend I will call Franklin sat down one weekend and listed every recurring charge on his statements. He found more than a dozen he had completely forgotten about, bleeding him for well over $100 a month combined. Every few months, I go line by line through my own statements and kill anything I have not used. Trim just $50 a month of dead subscriptions, invest it at around 7%, and that is roughly $26,000 over 20 years, built from canceling things you were not even using. Getting wealthier did not make me sloppier here. It made me more careful, because those leaks do not care how much you earn. They just keep dripping. The money matters, but the awareness matters more. When you know exactly what is leaving your account and why, you are the one in control, not the companies counting on your forgetfulness. Number 9. I buy quality used instead of shiny new. There is a cliff that most products fall off the moment they leave the store, and cars are the clearest example of it. Drive a brand new one off the lot, and it can shed a fifth of its value before you even reach the highway. That loss is not yours to enjoy. It simply evaporates into thin air. The same thing plays out with furniture, with tools, with electronics, with nearly anything that has a resale market. A woman I will call Bethany furnished her entire home with barely used pieces she found secondhand, solid wood furniture that will outlast the flimsy new stuff, all for a fraction of the retail price. She spent a few $1,000s where the new equivalents would have run her 5 times that. When my budget loosened up, I could have started buying everything new just to feel like I had finally arrived. I mostly did not, because I had learned that new is a premium you pay for the smell and the story more than the function. A lightly used item that someone else already ate the depreciation on does the exact same job for far less. Let other people pay full price to be first. I would rather buy the thing after the value has settled and put the whole difference somewhere it can actually grow. If any of this is landing for you, subscribe and stick around. I break down this exact kind of money thinking every single week, and honestly, the next 6 habits are the ones that change the most for me. Now, on to number 10. Number 10. I never upgraded my wardrobe to prove anything to anybody. There is a strange thing that happens with money and clothing. The people who most want you to think they are wealthy are very often the ones drowning in debt just to look the part, while the people who are actually secure tend to dress in a way you would walk right past on the street. Loud logos and status labels are a tax you pay for other people's approval, and that approval evaporates the second you leave the room. I buy clothes that fit well, last a long time, and do their job, and I stopped caring years ago whether they announced a price tag. A man I will call Cody spent his entire 20s buying designer pieces to project a success he did not actually have yet, and all it ever did was keep him broke and anxious. The wealthiest person you have ever walked past probably looked completely ordinary. That is no accident at all. Real security has no need for an audience. When my income climbed, the temptation to finally buy the status wardrobe was right there in front of me, and I let it walk on by, because I had watched what chasing that approval did to the people around me. The money I never spent looking rich is a big part of why I could quietly go on to become it. Number 11, I still handle the small maintenance myself, not the big dangerous stuff, and not the jobs where a professional genuinely earns their fee, but the small, learnable tasks that people quietly pay a premium to avoid. Changing a filter, patching a wall, swapping out a fixture, a basic tune-up, unclogging the thing before you call somebody to unclog the thing. Every one of those is a short video away from being a skill you own for the rest of your life. A neighbor I will call Raymond used to call a handyman for jobs that took 10 minutes and a screwdriver, and he was genuinely stunned when he added up a full year of those service calls. It ran well into the thousands. I learned to handle the simple stuff myself, partly for the money and partly because knowing how your own home and car actually work is its own quiet kind of security. When you can fix the small things, you stop feeling helpless, and helpless is expensive. Getting comfortable financially did not turn me into someone who throws money at every minor inconvenience. If anything, I got more curious because now I finally had the time to learn. The savings are real, but the confidence of not being at the mercy of a service call is worth even more to me. Number 12, I track every dollar and I know my numbers cold. This sounds tedious, and it is easily the least glamorous habit on this whole list, but it might just be the most important one. You cannot manage what you refuse to look at. The people who stay broke at every single income level almost always share one trait. They have no real idea where their money actually goes. It vanishes, and they shrug. For years now I have known, within a small margin, what comes in, what goes out, and where every category lands each month. That awareness alone changes your behavior, because it is genuinely hard to mindlessly overspend on something when you know you will have to face it on a statement at the end of the month. When my income grew, the numbers got bigger, but the habit did not change one bit. I still open the app, I still reconcile the accounts, I still know. Wealthy people are not wealthy because they never spend. They are wealthy because they always know. That clarity is exactly what lets you say yes to the purchases that matter and no to the ones that do not, without ever once feeling deprived. Knowing your numbers is what real freedom actually feels like, because it hands the steering wheel back to you. Number 13, I stopped spending money just to keep pace with other people. This might be the most freeing habit on the entire list, and it is also the hardest to actually pull off, because the pressure is almost completely invisible. A friend gets the boat, so suddenly you are wondering whether you need a boat. A coworker books the resort vacation and posts the glowing photos, and your perfectly good plan starts to feel a little small. This is how a lot of strong earners stay quietly broke. They are chasing a lifestyle that was designed entirely by whoever they happen to be sitting next to. I made a decision a while back to run my own race and to genuinely stop caring what the person beside me was driving or wearing or posting online. The relief was immediate and enormous. When you stop letting other people's choices write your budget for you, a staggering amount of pressure just lifts clean off your shoulders. A woman I will call Marguerite spent years matching every purchase her whole social circle made, and she was exhausted and falling behind despite a genuinely strong salary. The day she finally opted out, her savings rate nearly doubled overnight. Other people's spending is not a bill you are required to pay. Their lifestyle is their business, and yours is entirely yours. I earn more now than most of the people I once felt behind, and it is largely because I stopped trying to look like I already did. Number 14. I keep a large emergency fund on purpose, even though I could technically invest every last dollar of it. On paper, cash sitting in savings is lazy money. It is not out there chasing the high returns of the market. But that cash buys something the market never can, and that is the ability to sleep soundly at night and to never once be forced into a bad decision. When you have several months of expenses sitting safe and ready, a surprise car repair becomes a minor annoyance you barely think about. A sudden layoff becomes something you can absorb without panic because you have real runway underneath you. You are never cornered into selling your investments at the worst possible moment or reaching for a credit card at a punishing interest rate. That buffer is precisely what lets the rest of your money stay invested and grow undisturbed through every storm that comes. Early on, a fat emergency fund honestly felt overly cautious to me. Now I understand it is the foundation the entire structure rests on. And thanks to those high yield accounts we talked about earlier, that safety money is quietly earning close to 4% while it waits, so it barely costs me a thing to hold. Peace of mind is a genuine asset, even when it never shows up on a return chart. I keep mine fully funded, and I always will. Number 15. I buy assets before I buy comfort, and this is the habit that ties every other one together. Every dollar you earn is a little worker you get to send out into the world. You can spend that worker on something that loses value the moment you own it, or you can put it to work buying things that pay you back, investments, appreciating property, skills that raise your own income. For most of my life, the tempting path was to convert every single raise straight into a nicer lifestyle. The habit I built instead was to buy the asset first and let the comfort come later, funded by what those assets produced rather than by my own paycheck. That order matters more than almost anything else in all of personal finance. Comfort bought with your salary keeps you chained to the treadmill forever. When the income from your assets is what pays for your life instead, that is the real definition of freedom, because those assets keep paying you whether you work that day or not. That is the whole quiet game. You live a little below what you could, you send the difference out to buy things that grow. And one day, those things earn more than you do. None of these 15 habits are dramatic. Not one of them will ever go viral. But stacked together, patiently, year after year, they are the entire difference between looking wealthy and actually being free. So there they all are. 15 frugal habits I carried straight through building real wealth and never once plan to drop. If you want the foundation sitting underneath all 15 of them, the place I would point you next is the set of money lessons that most schools never bothered to teach any of us. That is where every habit on this list actually comes from. The basic rules about how money truly grows and how it quietly disappears. The stuff we all should have learned at 16 and had to figure out the hard way instead. Understand those, and none of these 15 ever feel like sacrifice again. They just start to feel obvious. Before you go, though, I really do want to hear from you. Which of these 15 do you already live by without even thinking about it, and which one hit a nerve? Maybe there is a frugal habit that changed everything for you that I did not even mention here. Tell me your story down in the comments. I want to hear what you learned the hard way, what you wish someone had told you so much sooner, or the one habit you are finally going to start this week. I read them, and the best money wisdom in these videos always seems to come from you all in the comments more than from me. So share yours and let us learn from one another.